Hey guys, in this video I'm just going to share with you my top 10 things that I wish I'd known before I started kickboxing, and also 10 things that you may find useful if you're considering taking up kickboxing for the first time. Okay, so number one on my list is that very first class. So I'd actually considered taking up kickboxing for quite some time before I took the plunge and booked that first class. And I guess the reason for taking so long to do this was fear of the unknown. By human nature, a lot of us don't like to delve too far into the unknown, especially for somebody like myself who can suffer with social anxiety at times. So booking that first class for me was a huge deal. I wasn't entirely sure what to expect. I kind of conjured up all these images in my head, which turned out to be not the case at all. So my very first class, everybody was extremely welcoming. I certainly wasn't the only newbie there. The instructors were very welcoming, the students, and everybody was just really friendly. So if I had known this before before my first class, I would definitely have booked ages ago and taken up kickboxing a lot sooner. Alright, so number two on my list is repetition. So when you first start your kickboxing class, you'll be given lots of things to try and remember, different techniques, different combos, and it can all seem a little overwhelming at times. I remember my first class thinking, holy shit, there is no way I'm going to remember all this stuff. There is just too much information to try and digest and retain. The thing is, repetition is key here. So you won't be expected to remember it all within your first class or even your second class or your third class. These things, sometimes you need to practice techniques and sets and combos hundreds of times in order for that information to sink in and in order for you to retain that information. So repetition is key here. Practice as often as you can. Just going to one class or two classes a week probably isn't going to cut it. As I found out when I first started, I was doing two classes a week purely because that was the only time I had available, and was struggling purely because I wasn't practicing enough. And as soon as I started going to more classes, 3 or 4 or even 5 classes a week, and it also helps if you can do a bit of practicing at home in the form of shadow boxing, so you don't necessarily need bags and pads and all the equipment. So just a little bit of shadow boxing to practice those techniques and sets, and you'll remember them in no time. I look back now at some of those techniques and some of those sets that I was stuck on back then, and I know them like the back of my hand now. So repetition is key. Okay, so number 3 on my list are bad days. You win some, you lose some. It's as simple as that. Yes, it sucks, but we all have bad days sometimes, whether it be in your working life, your personal life, or even kickboxing. When you first start out in kickboxing and you have a bad day, it could be for any reason. Maybe you had a bad day at work, or maybe you're just feeling tired. Perhaps you're just hungry. Quite often I'll rush home from work, rush to kickboxing class without having dinner first, and my stomach will be rumbling and I'm not particularly feeling on top form, but shit happens. The thing is, try not get too disheartened by it, because even now, if I've been doing kickboxing for just a little over a year, and if I have a bad day, I also train jiu-jitsu as well, but if I have a bad day, you can't help but get a little disheartened. Sometimes I even doubt myself and question, what the hell am I doing? Is this really for me? Because I'm so shit at it. And then I can guarantee you the very next class or the class after that, you'll have another good day and you'll wonder what all the fuss was about. So you will have a bad day in kickboxing. Just try not let it get you down too much, and just chalk it down to what it is, a bad day, and you'll be fine in your next class. Alright, so number 4 on my list is journals, blogs and vlogs, or at least note taking. So I wish I'd created some kind of a journal right from day one, scribbling down all my notes. And the main reason for that is because I think it's really good to look at your progress. So it would have been cool to kind of look back at some early notes and early entries into some kind of a kickboxing journal from back then when I first started kickboxing, and then compare them to how I'm doing now. I think by doing that you would get such a sense of achievement, and it's good to monitor your progress. Yes, I occasionally do vlogs such as this on YouTube in form of video, but I kind of wish I'd just kept some kind of a journal or created a blog and stuck to it, and after every class scribbled down some notes, things I was happy with, things that I wasn't happy with, and things like that. Like I said, a great way to check your progress. So number 5 on my list is go with the flow. So you've been kickboxing for several weeks now, and you're about to be graded to your first belt. You're about to be graded to white belt, yellow stripe, or whatever the colour system is in your kickboxing academy. So obviously you're feeling awesome, you've passed the test, you've been graded, and you've got that first belt. So it's only natural that you would want to replicate that feeling again as soon as possible. The thing is, at times it can feel as though you're just gunning for that next belt, and you want in grading as quick as possible, and then you get the next belt, and then it's the belt after that, and the belt, and don't get me wrong, it is good to have. It's really good to have goals in sight. That certainly helps, but try not just focus too much on the end result, on the belt. Instead, just chill out and enjoy the journey, and you will absorb far more information, and you'll fine-tune your techniques far more than you would by just gunning for that next belt. So instead of constantly looking for that next belt, just go with the flow and enjoy yourself. Alright, so number 6 on my list is injuries. It sucks. You will get injured at some point. It's a close combat sport. The thing is, when you do get injured, try and not continue going back to classes with an injury. Kickboxing it's very addictive. Once you start, you'll realise how much you enjoy it, and you won't want to miss classes. So one of the worst things that can happen is you'll get an injury, and then the next worst thing after that is you'll decide, my injury's not too bad, I'll carry on going to classes, and that injury will get worse, and then you'll end up having to take weeks off training, and possibly even time off work as well for the injury to heal. And again, this is speaking from personal experience. So I twisted my knee in class. I didn't realise at the time I twisted it. It was just a slight twinge. The next evening I thought, nah, it's okay, I'll still go back to class. And yeah, big mistake. My knee was 100 times worse. I hobbled out of the academy and ended up taking time off work, and I actually ended up taking about 4 or 5 weeks off kickboxing to give my knee chance to heal. And aside from that, I spent a small fortune on physiotherapy fees. Had I have just taken a few nights, maybe a week away from kickboxing right from the start, as soon as I felt that twinge in my knee, I probably wouldn't need to have taken all that time off kickboxing and taken time off work and wasted all that money on physiotherapy. So number 7 on my list is ego. Now, I'm nowhere near advanced enough to have any kind of an ego in kickboxing, but if you do, make sure you leave it at the door. You will get your ass kicked, whether it be by somebody more advanced, or even somebody less advanced than yourself, or somebody younger. And the key is, rather than thinking, I'll get you next time, just let it go, learn from your mistakes, and congratulate the guy. He beat you, so congratulate him on beating you, and learn from your mistakes. That's more important. Is, where did you go wrong? How can you fix this and make sure it doesn't happen again? Okay, so number 8 on my list is don't be afraid to train with people of a higher grade than yourself. Usually in kickboxing academies, they'll try and partner you up with somebody your own grade to train with for obvious reasons. But there may be occasions where there is nobody in that particular class of a similar grade to yourself. So you may have no option other than to train with somebody a slightly higher grade than yourself. When this first happened to me, when I first started kickboxing, I thought it was. I found it a bit intimidating at first. I was thinking, holy crap, this guy's going to kick my ass and he's going to make me look stupid because obviously he's more advanced. That couldn't have been further from the truth. In actual fact, what happened was the guy who was more advanced, who I was training with, he was able to point out some of my flaws in my techniques and not being a dick about it, but he was kind of helping me. So he'd point out some of the flaws that I was making and say, oh, hey Johnny, I've noticed you do your roundhouse kick like this and this. Maybe if you do it like this instead, you can see how, and then he'll explain why that would work so much better. So by the end of that class, I actually left the academy thinking, wow, I've actually learned so much today, and it's really helped me fine-tune my techniques. Because don't forget, if you're constantly partnering with somebody your own grade, you might be making slight mistakes or flaws in your techniques, and your usual partner who's the same grade may also not notice the flaws or techniques, or may not know that they're wrong. So unless the instructor happens to be walking past doing his rounds and at that particular time, that precise moment, and spots that flaw or that mistake, which should happen, but it doesn't always happen. Sometimes things get missed. So unless the instructor spots it, you could be just going through all these classes, training and doing things slightly wrong in terms of how you move your body with a certain kick or a certain punch or whatever. So that's where I'm saying somebody with a high grade comes along, and you end up training with them for this particular class, and they are able to spot those flaws and kind of give you a helping hand. So so instead of being afraid to train with somebody higher grade, relish in the opportunity to train with somebody who's more advanced. Alright, so number 9 on my list is sparring too hard. So it's your first time sparring, and the instructor tells you, right guys, just spar at 10%, 20% power or whatever. So it's all going fine, and then one of you hits the other slightly harder. This pisses the other guy off and comes back with, well, I can hit hard also, and then it just escalates from there. And before you know it, heads are flinging back, and the beginner's standing over there looking over, all intimidated, and the instructor is glaring at you. So don't do it. When you're sparring, you're there to train and learn, both of you and your partner. You're not there to kill each other. You're not going to learn anything from that. Sparring is still training. You're not fighting in the ring competitively or anything like that. So treat it like that. Treat it like training. You wouldn't train and practice a technique and give it 100% power. So why would somebody do that in sparring as well? And it is difficult sometimes, because you do start off light, and then, like I said, it escalates and you end up getting a bit, punching, kicking a bit harder, and then before you know it, people are kind of looking over. So don't do it. Just remember that. Just if you do find yourself sparring harder and harder, just kind of dial it back a little bit. But also, if you find your partner is sparring too hard, there's nothing wrong in saying to them, just tell them, hey, how about just dial it back a little bit. We're just training here. So there's no harm in that. You certainly don't want to be the guy who has a reputation for blustering in and sparring at 100%. You don't want that reputation, because all that'll happen is nobody will want to spar with you. Okay, so number 10 on my list is the gear. I was actually quite shocked when I first started kickboxing at how expensive the stuff is that you need for kickboxing. So things like, obviously, a pair of boxing gloves, focus pads, Thai pads if you're doing Thai boxing, shin guards, mouth guards or gum shields, hand wraps, and of course a bag to put all this stuff in. It soon mounts up. when I first started kickboxing, my first couple of classes, I just borrowed their boxing gloves. So they had a big box in the corner of the gym, full of boxing gloves that if you forgot your gloves or you didn't have any, you could go and borrow theirs. It was a little bit like forgetting your PE kit at school and finding a PE kit from the lost property bin. They were stinky because obviously other people had been wearing them and sweating in them. So after my first class, I decided, I really enjoyed the class. See, this is the thing. There was no point in rushing out and buying boxing gloves before my first class in case I didn't enjoy it. So after my first class, I thought, I'm going to stick at this. I really enjoyed it. So I then went out to buy some boxing gloves. You can get cheaper ones for around about £30-40. But as my granny used to say, buy cheap, buy twice. So a decent pair of boxing gloves will set you back around £80-90 and above. And the same goes for shin guards. You can buy cheaper shin guards, which may not last as long or may not be as comfortable. Or you can invest in a good pair. Focus pads and Thai pads, not too big an issue. I bought my own focus pads, even though they provide the focus pads at the academy, purely because, again, I was fed up of driving home after class and my hands were smelling like sweaty onions from using their focus pads. But also I wanted my own focus pads because that meant I could also train at home on at times when the gym was closed over holidays and things like that. I could still train at home without being restricted to go into the kickboxing academy. Thai pads, I haven't invested in any Thai pads yet, so I'm quite happy just using the academies for the time being. And then, like I said, of course, you'll need a big bag to put everything in because all of this stuff probably isn't going to fit into a regular sized gym bag. So it soon mounts up all of this equipment. So just be prepared for that. Okay, so that was my top 10 things that I wish I'd known before I started kickboxing. Thank you very much for watching this video, and I hope you were able to take something away from it, and I'll catch you guys in the next video.